Welcome to Read in Minutes. Here's a short summary of the book, The Martian by Andy Weir. If you enjoy it, then please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Now let's get started. Mark Watney, a botanist and mechanical engineer, is one of 6 astronauts sent to Mars as part of NASA's Ares 3 mission. The crew, led by Commander Melissa Lewis, successfully lands on the planet and begins their scientific work. However, after only 6 days, an intense and dangerous dust storm unexpectedly threatens their mission. The storm's powerful winds put excessive strain on the MAV Mars Ascent Vehicle, the spacecraft that would take them back to their orbiting mother ship, Hermes. Realizing the danger, NASA orders an immediate evacuation. As the crew rushes to the MAV through the violent storm, disaster strikes. A large piece of debris, a communication antenna, breaks loose and crashes into Mark, puncturing his spacesuit and sending him flying. His suit's biomonitor stops transmitting vital signs, making it appear as though he has died. Unable to locate him in the storm, and fearing for their own survival, the crew makes the difficult decision to leave Mars without him. Devastated but with no choice, they board the MAV and begin their return journey to Earth, believing their crewmate is lost forever. When Mark regains consciousness, he realizes he is alone on Mars with no way to contact Earth. The antenna that impaled him also damaged his suit's pressure system, but fortunately, his blood clotted around the hole, temporarily sealing it. He manages to drag himself back to the HAB, short for habitat, the temporary living quarters set up by the astronauts. As he stabilizes himself and assesses the situation, the harsh reality sinks in. He has no way to communicate with Earth, and the next planned Mars mission is 4 years away. Mark begins planning for his survival with the limited resources available to him. The HAB is equipped with enough oxygen, water, and food for the planned 31-day mission, but not nearly enough to last 4 years. Knowing that he will eventually run out of food, he must find a way to grow more. As a botanist, he devises a plan to cultivate potatoes inside the HAB. Using a small supply of Martian soil, his own bodily waste as fertilizer and water extracted by chemically breaking down rocket fuel, he creates a sustainable farming system. If successful, this will extend his food supply significantly. Meanwhile, back on Earth, NASA analysts monitor Mars through satellite images. One of them, Mindy Park, notices unexpected movement and disturbances around the Ares 3 site. It soon becomes clear that Mark is alive. This revelation stuns NASA and the world, triggering a race against time to figure out how to contact him and eventually rescue him. Mark, realizing he needs a way to communicate with Earth, recalls that the Pathfinder probe, an old NASA mission, landed on Mars in 1997. He decides to travel across the dangerous Martian terrain in a modified rover to retrieve it. After a long and treacherous journey, he reaches Pathfinder, repairs it, and successfully establishes a connection with NASA. Using a series of hexadecimal code signals, NASA and Mark begin exchanging messages. Eventually, he modifies the rover's software to allow direct text communication. This breakthrough gives Mark hope and enables NASA to guide him through problem-solving strategies. Engineers work tirelessly to develop a rescue plan, while also strategizing how to keep him alive for as long as possible. However, disaster strikes again when an accidental short circuit in Pathfinder's system fries the connection, cutting off communication with Earth. Mark is once again alone, forced to rely on his own ingenuity and problem-solving skills. As Mark continues his daily survival routine, he faces multiple life-threatening challenges. One of the worst occurs when the airlock of the hab malfunctions and collapses, causing an explosive decompression that destroys his potato crop. This catastrophe significantly shortens his survival timeline, making his rescue even more urgent. Meanwhile, NASA scrambles to send a supply probe to Mars to restock Mark's food. However, in their rush, they fail to properly test the probe, and it explodes shortly after launch. With the clock ticking, morale at NASA sinks. A breakthrough comes from Rich Purnell, a young astrodynamicist who devises an unconventional rescue plan. Instead of sending a separate mission to retrieve Mark, he proposes using the Hermes spacecraft, still en route to Earth, to perform a gravity assist around the planet and slingshot back to Mars. This daring maneuver would require Mark's original crewmates to sacrifice their safe return home and add over a year to their mission. NASA initially rejects this plan due to the risks involved, but Mark's crew, feeling responsible for leaving him behind, secretly votes to override the decision. They execute a carefully planned mutiny and manually alter their trajectory, committing themselves to returning to Mars to save him. With no other viable options, NASA is forced to support their efforts. Mark, unaware of the crew's decision until much later, prepares for his own journey to the MAV left behind for the Ares 4 mission, located 3,200 kilometers, 2,000 miles away. He spends weeks modifying one of the rovers to survive the long trip. During his journey, he encounters another deadly obstacle, a dust storm that threatens to block the solar panels he relies on for power. With no direct way to detect the storm's size, he must rely on clever observational techniques to navigate around it. After many days of traveling across Mars' desolate landscape, Mark reaches the MAV. However, the spacecraft is not designed for long-range space travel. To make it light enough to reach Hermes' orbit, he is forced to strip it down, removing unnecessary components, seats, and even the outer shell. Despite these drastic measures, the launch does not go exactly as planned. His velocity is too low, meaning he won't reach the Hermes crew as intended. In a final desperate maneuver, Commander Lewis devises a plan to extend Hermes' reach. Even with all possible adjustments, Mark is still too far away, leading him to take an extreme risk. He punctures a hole in his spacesuit's glove, using the escaping air as a makeshift thruster to propel himself toward the rescue ship. Commander Lewis, in a daring EVA, extravehicular activity, manages to grab him just in time. After a nerve-wracking moment, Mark is successfully pulled aboard. After months of isolation, countless near-death experiences, and extreme hardships, Mark finally returns to safety. Back on Earth, he becomes a global hero, celebrated for his resilience and ingenuity. His survival story captures the world's imagination and reinforces the power of science, teamwork, and perseverance. The novel ends with Mark reflecting on his experience. He acknowledges that survival was not about any single moment of brilliance, but rather a series of small, methodical problem-solving efforts. He realizes that space travel is not just about exploration. It's about facing impossible odds and overcoming them through human ingenuity. The Martian is a compelling story of human resilience, intelligence, and the power of science. Mark Watney's humor and resourcefulness make him an endearing protagonist, while the novel also highlights the collaborative spirit of scientists, engineers, and astronauts working together to achieve the impossible. The story celebrates the idea that, despite vast distances and overwhelming odds, humanity's drive to explore and support one another can lead to extraordinary achievements. Andy Weir's novel is not just a thrilling survival story. It is a tribute to problem-solving, the power of optimism, and the unbreakable human spirit.